The Detroit Tigers sold at the trade deadline this past season and somehow actually still made the playoffs. Are the hopes still high for 2025 though? We'll figure that out together on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino, riding solo today, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube, you might as well go ahead and hit that little button below. It will subscribe you to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. And if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And lastly, most importantly to Matt and I, give us a chance on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth personalized experience through text message alerts right to your phone, offering so much more than we can in this 30-minute episode. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with a $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And guys, this is a fun team. I think this is going to be a great episode. I'm doing things a little bit differently today. We're going to start with pitchers. It's just going to be a lot of fun. But one thing we are not going to change, we are going to talk about the Tigers as a whole at first. You know what? Because that's what we do around here on the team reviews. One thing I won't be changing. So the Tigers, as I mentioned, made the playoffs this season. They went 86-76. I think they beat expectations. I think they beat their own expectations. They sold at the trade deadline. They traded Jack Flaherty to the Dodgers that went on to win the World Series. Not that Jack Flaherty did much of anything in the playoffs, but we'll talk about Flaherty and we'll talk about those World Series champion Dodgers. You know what? They also sold Marcana. There was a couple other minor bats that they sold too. And the team that they went to the ball with, they didn't necessarily make it to the ball with, and they did make it to the ball. They made it to that dance that we call the playoffs and really fought hard. They went up against that Cleveland team, the division rivals, and they went 7. I really thought the Tigers were going to take that series. Didn't happen. So I think they got some fight in them to come up this next season, right? They got a bunch of young players that we're going to talk about. The pitching can take some of those pitchers can do a little bit better. I think they'll be all right. So I really like the Tigers. I like the outlook for 25, and let's get into it. As I mentioned, I want to do things a little bit differently today. And this one, guys, one of the main reasons I got to talk about my boy, Tarik Skubal, the pterodactyl. What a year for Tarik Skubal, right? Let's just start with the numbers themselves, and then we'll get into all the fun logistics of everything. But let's just start with straight business. Let's do numbers. In 2024, Tarik Skubal, 27 years old, 192 innings pitched. He had a massive 228 strikeouts in those 192 innings, a 2.39 ERA for Skubal in his 31 starts this past year, 18 wins. He hit everything. He had a 0.92 whip. His FIP was a 2.50. He pitched exactly where you'd want him to be. I don't think there's a lot more to ask for, and I don't know how we put anybody else other than Skubal as the SP1 for 25. That's how I have him ranked. I think that's how he should be ranked everywhere. I think we should be taking him off the board as the SP1. The underlying stuff looks great for Skubal. His fastball averages at 96.8. Batters hit 197 against it this last season. Batters, the best they did against Skubal's any of his pitches was against his changeup. They hit 216 against it. This guy's that good. And then he had similar results on all his pitches in 23. He's going to be 28 next year. Pitchers at their peak, you usually see most, not all, you get the exceptions like Verlander, Kershaw, but most pitchers, you see a peak of 3 to 4 years of, performance like this. I think we'll see the same for Skubal. I think once he gets to 31, 32, you'll start to see him tamper off a little bit. Hey, but you know what? We hold. You're not selling him in Dynasty. You're not selling him in Keeper unless the offer is overwhelming. Just to have a guy like this, it's going to be very Spencer Strider-esque, where he has, I think at least 2-3 more seasons of this in him, So I'm holding. I love Skubal, SP1 for 25. I don't think there's much else to add besides he has the best nickname in all of baseball that my brother Matt gave him, the Pterodactyl, 6'3", 240, just everything that you could love about a pitcher. Skubal has it, right? And more. Let's move on to the next guy. Let's really deep dive this rotation. Reese Olson. So I believe we did way too early sleepers or breakouts. Forgive me. I am it escapes me at the moment. I think we might have did both of those episodes. Reese Olson landed himself on one, and let's talk about why, just in case you didn't see that episode. So Reese Olson this past season at 24 years old made 22 starts for the Detroit Tigers, a 3.53 ERA. He had 4 wins, 112 innings pitched, 101 strikeouts. He had a 1.18 whip and a 3.17 FIP. So that's what we like. A young pitcher like Reese Olson at 24 years old has made, quite a few changes in the past few years to the repertoire. I liked what I've seen so far. He's going to be 25 next season. We know Detroit is very good with starting pitching, hence Skubal and all he's done. And, with Reese Olson, he wasn't a super highly touted prospect. He's not a name that, is blowing you away by any means. But I think we're going to get good value on a guy like Reese Olson. I think you're going to be able to get him in like a 12-man league as your SP, like 6, maybe 7 even. Hopefully the buzz doesn't get too crazy around a guy like Reese Olson, because he gets good results on his pitches. He throws 4 pitches at least 20% of the time. They don't really get hit around So the four-seamer gets hit at a 277 clip last year. It sits at around 94.2 miles per hour. And then his sinker, Reese Olson sinker, that he throws 20% of the time, gets hit at a 284 clip. The sinker was bad for him last year too, so that might have to be a pitch that Reese Olson says, get him out of here. But you know what? When it comes to the fastball, he actually got way better results on it in 23. The fastball only got hit at a 171 clip. The velocity was up a smidge in 23. So, as I said, Reese Olson didn't even play a whole year. He only got 21 starts and 112 innings. So, there was some injuries there with Olson. I like him. I like him, though. I think he's going to be a sneaky pick in 25 towards the end of our drafts. Let's sneak one more in. Let's do one more starting pitcher. Let's talk about Casey Mize, former number 1 overall pick. I'll say this about Mize. He would think he was overhyped. I know the stuff was there, but the results, he never really got, like, he had, let's look at the minor leagues. I know there was like 1 year where the results were absolutely crazy. So Mize in 2019, he had 21 starts in the minors, a 2.55 ERA, 109 innings pitched, 106 strikeouts with an 0.94 whip, and everybody was salivating over him. He's a big baseball guy, 6'3", 212. Just like I said, just has never really had the results outside that one season. If you look at all the other seasons in the minors and the bigs, mediocre at best. Mize is going to be a tough one for me next year. He's going to be 28. It's a make or break year for Casey Mize at this point. He made 20 starts this year with a 4.49 ERA, 102 innings pitched, 78 strikeouts, and a 1.46 whip. Is not doing it. It's not getting it done for fantasy purposes. The buzz around the name is still there. Like I said, highly, highly touted prospect, way more touted than, Reese Olson or even Skubal, who we talked about. Mize was just always supposed to be that guy, and it hasn't come to fruition. I don't see it coming to fruition ever. Can he maybe figure things out and be a Kyle Hendricks type of pitcher where, he could maybe reduce runs and have an okay whip and just never be at K per 9 kind of guy? Yeah, I could see that, but I don't even think that's an optimal outcome at this point. He gets a lot of ground balls, but he gets hit hard at the same time. None of his pitches got super good results, to be honest. All of his pitches, even if you go all the way down to the knuckle curve, which he threw 7% of the time, all the way up to the four-seam fastball that he threw 38% of the time, which again, Casey Mize is what I'm talking about here. Each one of those pitches got hit at least a 261 clip, and 3 of those pitches got hit at least a 286 clip or higher. And honestly, his main pitch, the fastball, 306 batting average against for Casey Mize. I'm not buying back in 25. I'll leave that for, somebody else. And I don't think you guys should either. There's so many interesting, names when it comes to Detroit and starting pitching. And guys, guess who's up next? Jackson Jobe, Riley Greene, and those names and more coming up next. And guys, real quick, I need to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. Once again, if your first bet, $5 bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And then I need to talk to you guys about the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, link in bio. It's going to be your ultimate fantasy baseball companion this offseason. Rely on Matt and I for our dynamic content. You're going to get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire just regular rankings. Do some dynasty, keeper stuff as well. I'm working on those rankings diligently, and they're coming out soon. And then we're just offering so much more. When we do our sleeper breakout bust episode, there's a lot of extra information there. So you're going to want to make sure you check out the Diamond Club on the Subtext platform, where the path to all of your fantasy baseball victories begins. Subscribe now and elevate your fantasy baseball experience to a new level. All right, guys, jumping back in here. Let's get back into it. We are not talking about Casey Mize, but let's talk about some Jackson Jobe. And if you've been hiding under a rock somewhere and you haven't heard about Jackson Jobe, he is the '1 pitching prospect in all of baseball. He pitches for those, obviously, Detroit Tigers. He's the #1 overall pitching prospect in baseball. He's 6'2", 190. He's 22 years old. And boy, oh boy, is Jackson Jobe good. Across 3 levels this past season, Jackson Jobe had 21 starts, a 2.36 ERA. He had 5 wins, 91 innings pitched with 96 strikeouts. Batters hit 198 against him. He had a 1.12 whip. And he's going to be really, really good, guys. I don't think there's any other way to put it. The Tigers gave Jackson Jobe the call at the end of the season. If you did not know that, he pitched out of the bullpen. Good results, didn't give up any runs across 4 innings, had a couple strikeouts. Batters hit 0.71 against him. 4 innings doesn't really mean much, but Jackson Jobe's going to be competing for a spot in that starting rotation. And honestly, I just don't see how he doesn't get it. There's not too many mouths to feed there after, the 3 I spoke about. Let's actually pull up the names there and do the due diligence. I know Sawyer Gibson-Long is hurt, and I'm a really big fan of his. He would have made the episode if I knew he's gonna have a rotation spot and be healthy going into next season. But once again, Jackson Jobe doesn't have a lot to compete against there. I really think if the Tigers want to make a statement and come out and win, you know what? Why not put him on the roster? Okay, so they have Kiter Montero, who was in spots, like I said, Sawyer Gibson-Long, but I don't think he's guaranteed to be healthy going into next year. And that's really it on the big league roster. So I honestly don't think there's a world where Jackson Jobe doesn't make the rotation. I'll say this: if you're drafting early, or if you're in a keeper or dynasty and this guy is around and you can still make moves, pick him up. If you could trade for him still, it might cost a pretty penny at this point if the guy that has him knows what he's doing, and most likely does. So I don't know if I'm doing all that, but in redraft, if you're doing your draft early, if you're playing those big money keepers, stuff like that, or if you're playing those NFBC leagues that start early, I think Jackson Jobe is a great lottery ticket as an SP 5 or 6 in a 12-man league. I'd probably even be leaning towards 5 just for the upside that he has. It's a great park to pitch in Detroit, and, he has the stuff to do it and get it done. So when it comes to Jackson Jobe, like I'm saying, he has a really, really good fastball slider combo. He throws a changeup in there as well. Even in college, he was just really, really good too. A big strikeout guy, tops out around 97, 98. And, like I said, the slider, it sits in between 82 and 85 with a lot of movement and sweep and break to it. He has a cutter that he throws too, which is, another pitch that he mixes in. So a guy with a repertoire of at least 3-4 pitches that, is going to pitch in a great ballpark and has, the prospect pedigree, salivating at the thought of Jackson Jobe making the rotation for the Detroit Tigers on opening day. I'll be all in. Let's move into the bats. Let's talk Riley Greene. And if you guys haven't been around for a while and you don't, or even if you have and you don't remember, Riley Greene was somebody I made a bold prediction about, coming into the season, right? My prediction was that Riley Greene was going to go 2020 and be an all-star for the Detroit Tigers. I got close, guys. I got close on that prediction. So actually, the actual numbers for Riley Greene this year, 137 games played. He hit 24 home runs. He made the All-Star team. He hit 262, but he only stole 4 bases. He let me down in that department, but you know what? It was a really, really good year for Riley Greene at 23 years old, and I think next year is going to be only better. And I'll be honest, if Riley Greene could finally stay healthy and give us, let's say, he stayed pretty healthy, 137 games isn't too bad. But if he can sneak into 150, right? Let's say he gives us 13 more games, 3-4 more homers. So you're talking over 25 homers. And I really think Riley Greene is somebody that, the sprint speed isn't elite, but it's above average. So maybe 20 bags isn't in the cards, even though in the minors, I believe he had some seasons where he stole over 20 bags. If you give me a second, I could probably pull it up here. Yeah, so 16 was actually his high in 2021. So yeah, maybe 20 was wishful thinking, but it was a bold prediction, right? So if Riley Greene could, and once again, this might even be bold, if Riley Greene could go next year 150 games, I think 90 runs is in the cards. Like I said, maybe 30 homers. No, maybe it's a little bold. Maybe 27, 28. With 85 RBIs, 10 steals, 12 steals maybe, and, a strong batting average. He is a career 267 hitter in the bigs. So I think Riley Greene could even hit, 270, 275. That's to me, that's a top, 24 outfielder. That's a solid outfielder number 2, an amazing outfielder number 3 in a 12-man league. So I'm in on Riley Greene. If you can't already tell, hyping him up. I'm a fan. If you want to know where I have him ranked, join me on Subtext. Join us on Subtext. Join Matt and I on Subtext, and I'll give you all my Detroit Tigers where I have them ranked from this episode. Let's move into the next bat. Let's talk about Spencer Torkelson. We're still waiting. There's no better way to say it, but we're still waiting for the big breakout from Spencer Torkelson because this past season, 92 games, 342 at-bats, 10 homers, 37 RBIs, 219 batting average. He was hurt, coming off a good season in 23 for Torque, where he played 159 games, 606 at-bats, had 31 homers and hit 233. I thought the breakout was in the cards. I thought that Torque could be, 250, 260 hitter, a lot of pop in that bat, 30-plus homers, of course. And that Detroit team was just so good this year that it would have been awesome to see, Torque hitting right in the middle of that lineup, and just doing his thing. But it didn't happen. I think we got great value on Torkelson in 25. I think you'll be able to take him as I think he'll be the outside of the top 12 first baseman for most people. And that's where the value is going to be, right? If you wait at first base or if you need a good utility or, corner infielder type of bat, I think Torkelson is going to be that guy. Like I said, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, and hitting 250 isn't out of the cards for him. And then it becomes very Pete Alonso light-ish, right? So I like Torkelson. Definitely going to have myself a couple of shares next year because I want to take that shot. I want to take that deep dive. After my top 7 first baseman, which ends with I think Vinny P or Christian Encarnacion Strand, honestly. I think you could just literally throw names, darts out there, and Torkelson could be one of those darts, honestly. So Let's before we move on and we talk about Kerry Carpenter, Colt Keith, and kind of just wrap these bats up. Like I said, those names and so much more coming up next. And guys, let's talk about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. With Game Time Picks curation, makes it easier to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, and more. Game Time has plenty of great features as well as they're all in pricing. When you toggle this feature, it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. With their seat views, you get a panoramic view from the actual seat you'll be sitting in the app before you buy. Game Time has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time's ticket coverage, with that, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Guys, what time is it? Game time. All right, folks, home stretch here. Let's keep things pushing. And who is up next but my friend, my buddy, Kerry Carpenter. We talk about Kerry Carpenter a lot. I think he's another one that made either was the breakouts or the sleepers list. I actually think it might have been the breakouts, to be honest with you. But Kerry Carpenter's good, man. He's good. Underrated is all I could think of when I think of Kerry Carpenter. He played 87 games last year. He had 264 at-bats. He had 37 runs. He had 16 doubles, 5 triples, 18 homers, 57 RBIs. He had 22 walks to 75 strikeouts, and he hit 284. I mean, he did it in 23 as well. He had 278 over 118 games with 20 homers and 6 steals even that year. So I just don't think that we can ask, much more from, Kerry Carpenter, except for when he gets, a full playing time, shot here in Detroit and he just gets healthy. I think next year the breakout is in the cards, and not that it kind of already has happened to a degree, but if you give Kerry Carpenter 150 games and he's hitting, somewhere near the top of that lineup is 80 to 85 runs out of the cards with, honestly, 26, 27 home runs, 90 RBIs, and a 280 batting average, that he might give Riley Greene a run for his money as far as, value. And I think we're going to have to draft Riley Greene higher than Kerry Carpenter. So now Kerry Carpenter doesn't necessarily have that prospect pedigree, but let me read you off what Kerry Carpenter did in the minors in 2022 as a 24-year-old. 98 games, 60 runs with 358 at-bats, 30 homers, 27 doubles, 75 RBIs, and he hit 313. It's in the cards, guys. I'm just telling you. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't be mad at the messenger. I'm just telling you, Kerry Carpenter is going to be good next year, and he was good last year too. Just draft him. I want to see. I don't even think he was drafted. To be honest with you, I don't even think he was that highly drafted. I've ADP pulled up from last year. Well, he might have been actually because the stats were pretty okay. So here we go. Kerry Carpenter. Just saw. How did I lose him? Oh Lord, guys. 49th outfielder. Kerry Carpenter was drafted as at pick 198. Almost at pick 200 for Kerry Carpenter. That's going to come up. I think maybe the 30s. We'll see him, low 30s. So I think you could get him as your OF3 and walk away very happy. If you get him as a utility bat, probably even happier. There's just a lot of upside here, man. Like when you see a guy that has, the pop that Kerry Carpenter does, with the combination of he's fairly quick as well. I actually want to check the sprint speed on Kerry Carpenter because I've seen him play and he looks like he's fast. Could just be the old eye test isn't working. Call me an old head. If we got some young bloods listening, I guess you could call me an old head with the eye test. But yes, above average, 60 grade sprint speed. So that is good. But stealing is just as much about the will to steal than actually doing it. So, 0 steals this past season and 87 games does speak a lot, but with 6 steals in 118 games, Not sure. I think we could see some steals, but you know what? Even if he doesn't really give us too much in that department, I think Kerry Carpenter is still going to be fantastic in 2025. Next up, guys, I have 3 young bloods. I got 3, as I was talking about old head and young bloods, these next 3 are still wet behind the ears. Let's do Colt Keith first. Let me say that 5 times fast. But Colt Keith, got the call this year. Looked solid. He wasn't bad. He had 148 games played, 516 at-bats, 54 runs, 15 doubles, 4 triples, 13 homers, 61 RBIs, 7 steals at 260. At 22 years old, no less. That's a good showing. That's a very good showing for your first year in the bigs. I think Colt Keith is going to be even better next year. I think Colt Keith, there's a reason he was a very highly touted prospect. He's done nothing but hit in all of the minors. In 2023 in the minors, Colt Keith played 126 games at 507 at-bats with 88 runs, 38 doubles, 27 homers, 101 RBIs, and a 306 batting average. So, Detroit's hard to hit in. I don't know if he's going to, get to the 30 home run mark here, but is he a guy that could jump from 13 home runs to 20 plus easily? Of course. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this Detroit lineup, so I don't know how high Colt Keith will ever hit in this lineup. So I think the runs are going to be a little bit lower, but the RBIs might be a little bit higher. So let me throw a soft prediction out for Colt Keith in 2024. We'll use the base as 150 games. I could see 65 to 70 runs. I could see 22 homers. I could see 75 to 80 RBIs. I could see, 8 steals, and he could hit 270. He could hit 280. Colt Keith's got a bat, man. He can swing that thing. He hit 306 in the minors in 2023, as I mentioned. The year before he hit 344. The year before he hit 301. The year before he hit 286. So it's in the cards, it's in Colt Keith's repertoire to be a good batting average guy and give you some pop too. Literally, if this Detroit team clicks on all cylinders next year, and I'd say how many bats? We talked about a lot of bats. I think we're going to talk about 6 bats on this episode. If 4 out of these 6 bats can do what we think they can do, Detroit's going to be a scary lineup, man. They're going to be young. They're going to be fun. The pitching, between Skubal, Olson, Mize, and Jobe, I think that's going to be super fun. So with Colt Keith, I think he could be one of those guys that we getting late that, is second base too. Second base is going to be a tough position to fill. So with that being said, I really think we should be taking Colt Keith, not inside the top 10 first baseman, but you know what? When you get to outside of that and you look around and you're like, where's the upside in this draft? I think you could definitely look Colt Keith's way. And I think he had third base eligibility on platforms like Yahoo. He loses that because he did play 133 games of second and nothing else besides DH. So just be cognizant of that if you were looking at Colt Keith as a third baseman. Let's move on to a couple of brothers here. Well, they're not brothers, but their brothers play in the bigs. Jace Jung, brother of Josh Jung, who plays for the Texas Rangers. Of course, Jace plays for these Detroit Tigers that we've been talking about for the whole episode. With Jace Jung, let's talk about the numbers. He got about 34 games played in the bigs this past season. And in those games, he hit 241. He had no homers, 3 RBIs, 5 doubles, 14 runs. Was a very lackluster performance. I want to talk about what Jung did in the minors, though, in 23. He played 128 games. He had 74 runs. He had 27 doubles, 28 homers, 82 RBIs, and he hit 265. With Jung, I think the thing he's going to struggle the most with is batting average. Even though he's shown it in stints in the bigs, it's still something that he seems to struggle with, as he climbs levels. And when he got to the majors, he did only hit 241. The power at 23 years old, the zeros are tough to take, man. The zeros in 34 games, no homers, that's a tough one to look at for, a Jace Jung. When you look at the underlying stuff for Jung, it is not good. There's I can't even candy code it. I was trying to find a way to candy code it. It's just not good. He might be a guy that's best left somebody else on draft day or just left to waiver wires, and we kind of see where the thing comes. If you guys watched the Mets episode I did yesterday where I was talking about Luis Angel Acuna, who is Ronald Acuna's brother, and I'll say the kind of same thing about Jace. When you have a brother that's really famous and or a big time MLB player like his brother Josh, he's probably working out with Josh. They're probably getting the best coaching, best things that money can buy. Students of the game. So I do expect Jung to be better next season, but once again, we're gonna take it with a grain of salt, and we're kind of just gonna see where the thing goes with Jace Jung next year, but probably not drafting him, like I said, unless it's the deepest of deeply, unless it's like a 15-man with like full rosters, corner infielders, and everything like that. We'll wait and see otherwise. Let's sneak one last name in here, another younger brother. Let's talk about Parker Meadows, who, of course, his older brother is Austin Meadows. With Parker Meadows, he's kind of been taking little step forwards here and there over the past, couple of seasons. Let's break down these numbers this year. 82 games for Parker Meadows with 39 runs, 12 doubles, 6 triples, 9 homers, 28 RBIs, 9 steals, 244 batting average, and 25 walks to 76 strikeouts. Meadows has some plate discipline, that didn't really show this past season because the year before, 17 walks, 37 strikeouts, looks a little bit better, a better ratio. He's got pop, he's got speed, in like 140 games, you're looking at a guy like maybe like 16 with a 250 batting average, decent counting stats. Meadows is going to be more of the deeper league kind of play, but, just wanted to talk about him because he's still 24, going to be 25 next year, has a little bit of prospect pedigree, has the family name, has the older brother who, I believe Austin Meadows was an all-star at one point. Y'all could fact check me in the comments on that one. But you know what? Has a solid minor league track record too for, Meadows, has some seasons where he almost went 20-20. So like I said, kind of shows off a little bit of the mix and the power and the speed. If you're looking for that later in your like 15-man drafts or your 5 outfielder leagues, Meadows is someone you can look that way. But guys, that is all for today. Please like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. After you make me or us your first listen, go over and give our boy Sully a listen over at Locked On MLB, doing great stuff over there. But guys, until next time, see ya.